Hello everybody, Chuck Holton here, and it's me again. If you were watching the earlier live stream, for some reason we finished the live here on CBN, and then as soon as we stopped it, it just disappeared into the ether, and I don't know why. We don't know why. We're looking into that and trying to figure out what went wrong. It could be some form of censorship, I suppose, although I kind of doubt it, because that's not, I mean, normally if YouTube's going to censor you, they're going to let you know that they're censoring you, and they're going to warn you not to do it again and give you a good talking to. We haven't received any messages that said that our live is being censored in any way. It might be that it just sort of went poof and disappeared. We don't know why, but we're sorry about that. If you were watching it and it just disappeared, that's what happened. Wasn't anything on our end. It just was like on YouTube side, I guess. So I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to keep this one pretty short. I'm just going to give you some updates on what's going on here in Israel, and we'll take a couple of questions maybe, and then I've got to run to the airport. But I wanted to start with what's happening in Gaza. It's, they say, the busiest day that they've had since the war started. They are working very hard in the north, in Jabalia refugee camp. I say in air quotes because it's not a refugee camp. It's first, they're not refugees. Second, it's not a camp. It's a neighborhood. But there's some heavy fighting there. That was one of the strongholds of Hamas. And in the south, they have pushed all the way into basically the center of Khan Yunis. They have hit more than 250 airstrikes over the past 24 hours. That's a massive, massive number of airstrikes. And they have surrounded the home of Yahya Sinwar, the commander of Hamas in Gaza. Now, the real leadership of Hamas lives in Qatar. And they live high on the hog. They live very, very well. They're multi-billionaires. They've been skimming aid money that's been given to Gaza for many years and made themselves very, very wealthy. They're good friends with the leadership of Qatar. They regularly meet with them. They meet with people like Vladimir Putin and stuff like that. And the leadership on the ground in Gaza is more kind of hardcore. And they're led by Yahya Sinwar. Now, the IDF has surrounded his house. You might ask why they didn't just flatten his house. And that's a very good question. The reason that they surrounded his house is because they believe they may be able to find some hostages there. What they're finding, they're learning as they move through Gaza, is that anywhere that was a command center for Hamas leaders, it's very likely that there were hostages there to use as human shields. And so they're going to these places, even though Yahya Sinwar has homes all over Gaza, and he himself is a very wealthy man, and he would be stupid to be in any of those homes right now. He's more likely deep, deep underground. They're going to go to all of those places and check them out and see if they can rescue any more hostages, because they know that every day that goes by, those hostages are not being treated well, especially the soldiers, especially any females that are left. They are learning from the females that were released in the hostage exchange of the ceasefire last week that they were terribly sexually abused. At least 10 of those female hostages were raped, and many of them were gang raped multiple times. Even while they say bombs were falling around them, they never stopped raping them. And so there have been some rumors that a couple of those women are pregnant because of those rapes, but that's not been corroborated. So take that for what it's worth. Now, so one of the major wins that the IDF is looking for in Gaza is to rescue some of the hostages, not negotiate for their release, but to actually spring them from their captivity by rescuing them. And so they're doing everything they can to do that. Part of the reason that they have decided to start filling the tunnels with seawater is because there's a lot of people hiding in those tunnels, and they want to force them out. So that seawater is not going to come up so fast it's going to drown everybody. It's going to come up slow enough that they're just going to not be able to stay down there, and they're going to have to come to the surface. And that's the plan anyway. They don't know if it'll work, but they figure it's worth a try. They brought in engineer units with a whole bunch of pumps, and they've started pumping seawater into those tunnels, like many of you were recommending before the war even started, before the invasion started. Many people were talking about, well, they ought to just pump seawater in there. And the IDF was like, you know, and now they're like, hey, I know, maybe seawater would be a good idea. So they should have listened to all of us at the beginning. Let's hope that that works. The leadership of Hamas is hiding in the deepest tunnels, because those are the ones that are impervious to bunker buster bombs, taking them out. And they've already killed a whole lot of commanders of Hamas, and they are gunning for every single one of them, and they're not going to leave Gaza until they're all gone. They have a list, and they are going down that list. They're checking it twice, and they are bringing hell on the commanders and the Hamas fighters. Anybody who was involved in the October 7th attacks is, they say, dead men walking. Even the leadership that is in Qatar and Lebanon and Europe and anywhere else in the world, those guys better not be buying any green bananas, because the Mossad is legendary for going after those guys, and they will. They are. If it takes years, they don't care. They don't forget, and they are going to take them out. There will be retribution. They realize, the IDF and the leadership of Israel realizes that they have got to slap Hamas so hard. Not just slap them, they've got to destroy them, and destroy them so hard and so violently that every other terrorist group on the planet is going to go like, ooh, yeah, but maybe we'll plan that attack for another day. You know, they want to make everybody think twice. And really, that's what the United States ought to be doing. But they don't listen to me, and they don't listen to you. So another reason why they're going so hard down there is because Netanyahu knows that he's got to keep the pressure on, keep the attention on the war going on down there. So he needs it not to just sort of plod along, or worse yet, turn into a stalemate or something like that, because Netanyahu's position is pretty tenuous. He was hanging by a thread before the war started, and he's hanging by a thread now. He's even like having court cases brought against him during the war, which is kind of unprecedented. If you go back and look at the history of Israel, whenever they are attacked like this, they pull together as a team, and they forget all their petty differences until after the war is over, and then they start seeing who to assign blame to, appointing commissions, going back to their squabbling politically. And that was the case for the last 2 months here too, but just a day or two ago, people started, in the government, started filing court cases against Netanyahu for corruption and things like that, again, even in the midst of the war. And that is sort of unprecedented. So he needs to keep people's attention down south in Gaza, and the way to do that is to just ramp it up and really throw everything they've got into this fight. But the more violent they get in Gaza, the more pressure they get from the international community, the more attacks they get from the north. They have, you know, Hezbollah ramping up its attacks on the communities up north. And so there's more fighting going on between the IDF and Hezbollah now. They actually killed a soldier from the Lebanese army in a strike today, which they did not mean to do. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were striking some Hezbollah fighters, and they apparently killed a soldier from the Lebanese army. The IDF actually issued an apology for that to the government of Lebanon, and that's pretty unprecedented. So they obviously didn't mean to kill that guy. But so in the south, in the far south, in Eilat, they had air raid sirens today as the Houthis, again, those ridiculous savages from Yemen, fired another missile at Eilat. It still did not work. It still did not make it into the airspace of Israel. It was shot down by the Arrow missile system before it even got there. And so the Houthis have maintained their perfect record of not getting anything that they fire anywhere near any Israelis. And so even the ones they've shot at the ships out in the Gulf have not come near anything Israeli, so to speak. There was a large volume of rocket fire out of the southern part of Gaza today, going toward Beersheba, which is out in the east. It's a large city out in the east. There were enough rockets that not all of them could be shot down by the Iron Dome system, and some of them struck. They're causing some damage and things like that. There was an incredible video that you can see over on my podcast, or I'm sorry, my webpage. If you go to chuckholton.com and sign up there, you can see a video I put up of a fragment of a rocket. And when I say fragment, it's like 6 feet long. I mean, a big piece of a rocket that fell out of the sky after it was shot down by the Iron Dome system over Tel Aviv. And some guys were like walking down the sidewalk, and this thing went whack and just crashed right into the ground, inches away from them, and almost killed them. And they were like, whoa, you know, they jumped back. You can see it on video. It's like, you watch that and you go like, oh man. That is why the government of Israel says that if there's an air raid siren where you live, you should go to the shelter and you should stay there for 10 minutes after the siren goes off. Because what a lot of people will do is they listen, and when they hear the explosion, they figure, okay, that's it, and they come out. But if the explosion was 3,000 feet in the air over your head, then you might have a minute or two after that all that debris is raining down on the city, and you never know where it's going to land, and a piece that's 6 feet long could definitely ruin your weekend, you know what I mean? So it's a good idea. They also, I mean, I learned that in the combat zone a long time ago, that when incoming fire, if you get indirect fire, whether it's artillery, rockets, missiles, whatever, mortars, you dive down and take cover, and when you hear the thing explode, you wait, and you wait, and you wait, because just because it exploded, that means it threw a whole bunch of debris and shrapnel up into the air, and it's got to come down somewhere. So you wait until it comes down before you get up. There have been a lot of people killed and wounded by hearing the explosion go off and then figuring they're safe, sticking their head up, and getting killed by a piece of shrapnel. So you can see that video if you go over to chuckholton.com and subscribe on Locals over there. You don't have to pay anything, but you might have to sign up to see the video. I'm not sure. I think you can see it without even doing that. Just go into that site. Please go and subscribe to my Hot Zone channel. I'm over there. We are talking about this hotel over here has 100 young people staying in it that are internally displaced from their homes up in the north mostly, some of them from the south. And they've been there for 2 months. They're bored stiff. They're doing school in the basement of the hotel. And I see them out here playing soccer in this tiny little parking lot right in front of the hotel. And that they're just going stir crazy. So a bunch of people over on my podcast on the Hot Zone donated money, and we went shopping. My wife went out and spent $2,500 on gifts for Hanukkah. They're going to have a big Hanukkah celebration tomorrow at the hotel, and we're going to take it over there and give it to all the kids, the little kids, 12 and under. Over there, we bought little backpacks for all of them and filled them full of goodies and toys and stuffed animals and things like that, just to try to brighten up their holiday, which obviously has been sort of thrown off by the war. The older kids, there's about 50 couple kids that are between 12 and 18. They asked us to just get gifts for the younger kids, and that's good because there's a lot. But we're gonna, I don't know, buy them some pizza and show them a movie or something like that as well. I'm not sure, because you know we want to love on them. We want to show them the love of Christ, but we can't. We don't want to disrupt their traditional Hanukkah celebration, which I've never been to, so I don't really know how that goes. And I told the lady over there that, and she said, well, you'll be our guest at Hanukkah, at our Hanukkah celebration tomorrow. And so we're looking forward to that. We're going to film it, and we're going to put it up on my Hot Zone podcast for you to see it over there. So you can go subscribe over there if you want to be notified when that happens. I am going to have to run pretty quick, but I'll answer a few questions here, and then we'll get out of here because this is the second live that I've done. We may be able to actually resurrect the other one from the dead, but I don't know what happened to it, and neither does anybody else. So we'll see. What will the seawater do to the ammunition bombs? We'll just ruin them so they will not work. That's correct. Bombs and seawater, salt water do not mix very well. Anything electronic, of course, will be wrecked. A lot of those missiles have, computer chips in them, and the fuel for the explosives will get wrecked if it gets exposed to too much seawater. You really, if it's immersed in seawater, it's not going to be good for it, and that's one good way to do that. No, Chuck is not Jewish. Chuck is a Christian. Grew up the son and the grandson of Baptist preachers, and so I've got a strong bent towards letting loose and letting it preach. Erie, PA here. Wish you good judgment in dealing with all the people and situations you're facing. Thank you, Tom. That is a very, very good prayer for me. I am not only dealing with the government here, dealing with the military here, trying to cajole them into letting me do an embed with the troops, but I'm getting 100 emails every day from viewers like you, which I love, and I read every one of them. But that's time consuming, and some of y'all are just crazy. Some of you guys are pretty crazy, and I'm not really sure how to respond to some of the messages I'm getting. You know who you are. So, I would love prayers for discernment and wisdom as to how to show the love of Jesus to the people that I meet. That's one thing I always try to do. Okay, any other questions real quick? Let's see. Yeah, some people caught the first live and they're like, yay, another live. I've been crushing it with the lives today. Is the IDF letting other reporters go into Gaza? Some of them are. I mean, they've let like several news agencies into Gaza. They let local, Israeli reporters go in and embed. But foreign journalists, they've let Trey Yingst from Fox News in. They've let CNN and BBC and maybe a couple others. But they are really, really tightly controlling that. I got an email today saying, if you want to go in, send us this information, and we are making a list of people to send in. So just pray that they get my request. I already sent it in, and that they get me high enough on the list that I can go in before I have to leave in a week to go back home for Christmas. I may come back after the first of the year. We'll just see how the war goes. Do you believe this is the birth pains Jesus was talking about? I don't know, Will. I am a journalist and not a scholar of Revelation. That end time stuff is it's interesting, but I am not an expert on that, and I'm not going to pretend to be. So that's a question for somebody that knows a lot more about it than I do. Will Israel be forced to leave Gaza after the war? That's a very good question, A4. Israel has said that they are not willing to turn Gaza over to the Palestinian Authority. They say that they have proven that they cannot govern, and so they're not willing to do that. They are being pressured by the international community to turn it over, and to turn it over like Anthony Blinken told them, you have to have this wrapped up by the first week of January. And the Israelis basically laughed him out of the room and said, don't even think it. We are not going to be done by the first week of January, no matter what you say. And so they are really pushing back hard on the United States over this, and good for them. Do you know if some hostages were, where'd it go? Transported out of Gaza to Iran or some other countries? We have been talking about that, Daniel. It is certainly possible that it happened. I don't know how likely it is, because they would have to have cooperation from Egypt, most likely, to get them out. They were checking everybody that was leaving into Egypt. So unless they have a tunnel nobody knows about, which they could, or something like that, it's probably not super likely. And Israel is operating on the assumption that they are all still in Gaza. But they certainly would have if they could have. Okay. God hears what you say in private and answers. Okay. Do you know Turkey needs Palestine? Maybe. Well, Turkey is certainly Muslim Brotherhood. Okay. Do you go into the field with any tactical gear? When I go into the field, I wear body armor, if that's what you're asking. I don't typically carry a weapon, at least not in this context, because I wouldn't be allowed to, and I don't know that I would want to tell you the truth. I've got enough junk to carry, and if I'm surrounded by soldiers, if I'm embedded with the IDF, then there's not really any reason for me to carry a weapon. If things get bad enough that I need to be shooting, you can guarantee that there will be some people laying around that don't need their guns anymore, and I can just pick up one of theirs. When I go to places like Syria, I do carry a weapon, but I'm not there as a journalist. I'm there as a humanitarian with the Free Burma Rangers, and that's a whole different thing. But so it's very, very limited circumstances where I would carry a weapon in to do what I do. It's just not really feasible in most cases. And of course, the IDF in this case would never allow a journalist to carry a weapon. It just would not happen. Okay. Yeah, everybody's sending me videos like, here, watch this hour-long video. You need to see this. And I'm like, yeah, I wish I had an hour to watch that. But I don't. And so I have watched as many of the things that you send me. Some people have sent me really good articles, really good videos. I'm getting the same things over and over again. So, you know, I kind of weed some of them out. But I do try to at least look at what you're sending me. And if it's too long and I'm not going to have time to watch it, I just don't. But thank you for sending them. I really appreciate it. Okay. Question, are they really expecting Britain's plane to fly over Gaza and not get fired at? Yes, they can fly over Gaza. Britain's plane was not going to Gaza. They were going to... The British are supposedly sending a plane from Cyprus over to Lebanon to get British citizens out of Lebanon, expecting there to be more fighting going on there. And they're trying to evacuate their people out of Lebanon, which maybe they should have done a while ago. Is war required in this world? There's enough suffering. Yeah, James, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. I would love it if everybody would just stop fighting. And the Bible says that one day that God will turn all of our weapons into plowshares. But so far that has not happened. And so in the real world, there still is war. And there still is a need for war in some cases, like this one. Can you explain to us how flares work on the battlefield? Are they launched from a plane or a drone? Okay, Pat, that's a really good question from Barcelona. Pat Nord asks, how do flares work? Flares are typically fired by artillery. Now, when I was a grenadier, I was a M203 gunner. An M203 is a 40 millimeter grenade launcher that goes underneath your M16 or now M4, and it fires these grenades that are about this big around and about that long. And they'll fire explosive rounds, flechettes, or parachute flares. And so I could fire them on the battlefield by just going poop and shooting them up in the air. And then the parachute pops out and it burns this magnesium that's very, very bright, and it comes down under a parachute and lasts about a minute, lights up the whole battlefield. The ones that they're firing over Gaza are fired by artillery, and they're much bigger than that, and they last longer than that, and they're much brighter than that. But the function is essentially the same. It's magnesium that burns very, very bright under a big parachute that opens up after they fire this thing up into the air. So that's how they work. There is a different kind of flare that is fired out of an airplane or a helicopter, but it's not meant to light up the battlefield. The flares that aircraft fire are meant to throw off surface-to-air missiles that might be fired at the aircraft to take it out. So if helicopters flying around and the systems on board detect that a radar signature or something or a laser has locked onto that aircraft or is being pointed at that aircraft, then it will take evasive maneuvers and fire off a whole bunch of magnesium flares which fan out behind it to confuse the missile or rocket or whatever that might be streaking toward it at that moment. And when I flew helicopters, we had those on our helicopters, and boy, if you forget to turn those flares off and you come into the airfield and there's all kinds of radar and stuff going on at the airfield, you find out really quick because your flares start going poo, 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 poo off by themselves, and that's really embarrassing. I mean, not that that ever happened to me, but I heard that it was very embarrassing. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question about flares. And goodbye, Joseph. Bob, I'm sorry you feel that way. We're trying to do the best we can to give you the truth of what's happening here on the ground. Do you think Israel have enough arsenal to finish the war without us helping them? Yes, I do, but it would take longer and be more dangerous because they'd have to do more with the limited stuff they have. They're going to have to be more judicious about, ammunition and things like that. I think that they can prosecute this war without any further help from the United States. And of course, they can always buy weapons from anywhere they want. They found the largest ammunition and weapons cache in northern Gaza that they have ever found in Gaza today. It was said it was full of rockets and ammunition and all sorts of things. The problem is none of that stuff is compatible with what Israel already uses because it's Soviet bloc stuff or homemade in Gaza. And so most of it they blew up right there on site. They're not going to use. Some of it they said they took back into Israel for further testing because it was probably homemade stuff that they'd never seen before, and they wanted to learn about it so they can alert their guys in the field of what to be aware of and what to be looking for. Okay. Yeah, please hit that like button. Thank you, Ronnie and Jeff, for letting people know that. It really helps us if you hit the like button and if you tell us where you're logging in from. If you go to the chat there and just say where you're logging in from, that chat rate goes way up, and that's really helpful. So I have got to run. Do I think the other hostages are alive? L. Faith Bittman, yes. I think many of them are. The hostages are very valuable to Hamas, and so they have a vested interest in keeping them alive at all costs. Some of them may have died due to their treatment, due to bombing from Israel. We don't know. So Israel has announced that they believe that at least 15 of them have already died. 15 of the 137 or so that are still being held have already died. But they haven't retrieved their bodies yet, so they don't know for sure. And that they announced that yesterday. They also announced some of their casualty figures. The IDF says that they've now lost they've lost like 80 IDF troops during the invasion of Gaza, and that tracks with about the rate that they've been losing troops. They seem to be losing a few every day. So this is not an easy fight for them, but I can guarantee you it's a lopsided fight, and that Hamas is losing a lot more than 3 or 4 people a day. No question about that. We're talking in dozens into the hundreds a day, most likely. Why the tunnels not flooded? The tunnels are being flooded right now, but it will take, it could take weeks for the tunnels to get flooded. I mean, it could take a long, long time because they're 300 miles of tunnels. That's a lot of tunnels, but we'll see. Can you please tell me if you're an independent reporter? I am, Tammy, I am a freelance war correspondent who goes to wars and disasters around the world, and I do reporting for multiple networks. I have been reporting for CBN for the longest, since about 2003. So for more than 20 years now, I've been reporting for CBN, and they are my primary outlet, but I also report for Newsmax and others. And I have my own podcast over on the Hot Zone here on YouTube, where you get kind of a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to be a war correspondent and go to 25 countries a year reporting on wars and disasters. So if you want to follow me and go learn more about the stuff that I do, go follow me over on the Hot Zone here on YouTube, or go to chuckholton.com and follow me there. Let's pray. That's the most important part. We don't want to forget that, and then I'll go. Thank you, God, for giving me a front row seat to what you're doing here in Israel. Lord, I pray that my reporting would be neutral, that it would be factual, and tell the truth of what's happening on the ground. Even though that doesn't mean that I have to pretend that there is any kind of equivalence between the monsters of Hamas and the righteous cause that IDF are pursuing here in Israel. It's plain for anybody with a few brain cells to rub together to see that this is not a neutral conflict. And most of them are not. Most conflicts are not. But Lord, help me to be able to tell the truth and get the truth out. You promise that the truth will set us free. Your truth will set us free, Lord. And so I pray that more people here in Israel would find your truth, not the truth of what's going on here, not the political one-sidedness that we see from many outlets, but Lord, your truth. And I pray that the people who are having their worst day, whether it's in Gaza or here in Israel right now, would cry out to you, and that you would make yourself very real to them, where when everything else is taken away, you would shine brightly in their lives, and they would see you. And they would especially see you in the way that we react when we meet them, that we would show your love to the people we meet, and you would enable us to do your work, to be your hands and feet here on the ground in Israel. Thank you for the people who are supporting us back home with prayer, and I pray your blessings on them. Thank you for everything that we're able to do here, and I pray that this will be over soon so we can all go home. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching, and I am out. Let's hope that this one does not die and disappear when I stop.